Protect yourself and your family from unexpected challenges. Consider accident-only income protection. Click the link in the description to find out more.
Boxing King Media in association with SaveMoreMoney.com. Eddie Hearn out in Monaco. Humongous event for you guys over there. How's everything? I see the weather's not great.
Yeah, it's been 3 years since we've been here. We had a great run, 4 years on the spin, and then COVID hit and kind of knocked us for 2 years. And then last year we were close to doing a show here, couldn't get the dates to marry up, but back now. Big 4-fight card, World Championship doubleheader, some great fights on the card. Different kind of event, from the madness of Cancun last week, and all of a sudden you're in a casino with 300 people with tuxedos on and royalty and so forth. But good to be here and looking forward to a great show.
Yeah, just for the fans that probably don't understand how this Monaco event works, is it similar to like the events in Saudi where somebody comes in with a pot of money and says, "I put an event on"? Is it the same sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of we're doing more and more with international governments now and tourism agencies, and it's a bit similar to that, really. SBM over here in the casino want to showcase the casino. They want to showcase Monte Carlo. They want to provide a night of top boxing for the casino guests and high rollers and royalty, etc. And that's really similar to how it works. They come in with effectively a site fee, if you like. With 300 people, the gate's not going to be huge. So, but obviously it's a lot of high net worth individuals and a chance for the people of Monaco and guests of the casino to enjoy a night of championship boxing.
Do they have a saying like what the main event is? Because I'm thinking like Saudi, for example, they kind of pick the fighters, don't they? Do they have a saying?
Yeah, they want an international feel. So if you look at this event particularly, obviously you've got Cordina, you've got Wales fighting Mexico. You've got Noshinga, our South African champion, fighting a Mexican. You've got Ramla Ali, fighting Guzman, the Mexican as well. You've got Suleiman Sissoko, a Frenchman. So you've got a lot of big international flavour on the card. And that's important to them.
With Joe Cordina, I know Zelfa Barrett was quite vocal about the fact that he didn't want to fight him because he wanted to be in unification fights. So how did this fight with Vasquez come about?
Yeah, I think with Joe, I think Joe felt that Rakhimov beat Zelfa Barrett. So, he felt that wasn't necessarily the right fight for him. We quite like the fight as well, but we get it. We understand. Vasquez is a guy we've had on our shows before. He had a very good fight with Ray Ford. Some people thought he won that fight by a split decision. He's ranked with the IBF. He's a talented American fighter. So he got the nod. I think, it's a big banana skin. I think Vasquez can really fight. He's super tough. Shaki Foster told me that on Sunday in the hotel in Mexico. And, when you're talking about the big fights, the unification fights, or you're talking about, a big fight with Lee Wood, these are the ones that actually carry the extra danger. So Vasquez will give Joe everything he can handle on Saturday. But I truly believe that Joe is the best 130-pounder in the world. And I expect a great fight, but I expect him to be triumphant.
And when Ramla Ali, I think it's worth highlighting, a lot of fighters could have easily took another route. The knockout was pretty devastating. And I think it's worth highlighting because most fighters get called chinny and all sorts of stuff after endings like that, but she's decided to rematch her straight away. I think we probably need to praise her for that.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very gutsy move from Ramla. I mean, don't forget, she was out boxing Guzman for a lot of that fight. She decided to start trading up, and it was a heavy knockout. It was a heavy knockout. And you see in female boxing that sometimes they're not the biggest punchers, but Guzman is very heavy-handed. Sometimes she's a little bit crude in her work, but if you stand and trade with her, you're going to be in trouble. And that's what Ramla did. So from the moment she lost that fight till now, she wants the rematch and she wanted to have it straight away. So we delivered that. The rest is up to her. But Guzman, you could see today at the press conference, full of confidence, and she's going to be chasing her down and stalking her from the first bell. So Ramla's got to be super disciplined in the fight.
With regards to Guzman, I saw something on Boxtech that says that she's suspended from Louisiana for Boxing and Wrestling Commission. Any idea what that's about?
No. I mean, sometimes if you have a cut or something like that, which I think she did have in the fight as well. They'll say you can't box for a certain period of time. And a lot of the time, BoxRec don't actually update that system. So that fight was back in, God, whenever that was, July or something like that. No, before that even. So yeah, it's more than likely that that's from the cut in that fight, which should have been removed.
Good stuff. And you know, I think you said you got some high rollers in the arena. Are you able to name any, or is it all like politicians and
no, all private high rollers, businessmen. I mean, there's a huge poker tournament out here, one of the biggest in the world. So all those high roller gamblers and stuff like that are all here. And obviously there's a lot of wealthy individuals here in Monaco that like to play in the casino. And yeah, it'll be an interesting crowd on Saturday.
And obviously this kind of kicks off your international tour. Well, it doesn't kickstart it off because he was away last week as well. But the Abu Dhabi dates, I spoke to Frank a while ago. And I think he said there was a potential date in July, September, and obviously the 23rd of December is another date you've been playing with. What is the latest with the Abu Dhabi scenario? Are these guys still wanting events on?
Yeah, they are. I mean, obviously they're very specific in terms of the events they want. December 23 might become January. We speak to them every day. And just trying to get them the right fights. I mean, I don't think that Abu Dhabi are necessarily looking at boxing as something they must do, just something they want to do if the opportunity is right for them. You know, the key is to drive travellers, tourism, you know, people into Abu Dhabi for the right fight. And I don't think they're just going to do a boxing event for the sake of it. But if there's one that works for them and the numbers work for them, they'll definitely do it. So we speak to them virtually every day. They still absolutely want to continue with boxing. And we hope to deliver a show out there in December or January.
And just moving on to I know you've spoken about the whole Fury and Ngannou fight. I just wanted to ask you, because we see a lot from like the media and fans. You know, we've seen it with AJ recently as well. You know, the performances didn't go the way people expected it to. And the same with the Fury scenario. Everyone's been calling for the heads, saying they need to retire, call it a day. How do fighters deal with that? Because it's mad, because you don't get that with footballers, you don't get that with cricketers.
You know, I think it's a good question. I think it's really difficult. And I think some people will struggle with it more than others. I actually think Fury will really struggle with the criticism. I think that, you know, he's a jovial kind of character, but you see how he's like banned TalkSPORT and didn't do the press conference after the fight. I don't think he enjoys criticism, but you've got to also understand it's going to come. You know, if you're in that position, if you're at the top of the game, and especially when you're in a bit of a money grab, which that really was for him, I think, even by his own admissions, and you perform like that against a guy that's never boxed before, you can't expect not to be criticised. So, but it is difficult when you give your all and you love the sport. And listen, I saw it when AJ lost to Ruiz. I couldn't believe it. You know, it was like, oh, this guy's useless. Oh, embarrassing. Oh, you know, from sort of adoration to really humiliation. And obviously this one is much worse because it's not a top 10 heavyweight. It's a bloke that's never boxed before. So, and I think it kind of made it even worse that he won, because most people didn't think he won. So then he gets sort of almost gifted a decision, and it can make you unpopular. It's really quite weird sometimes. Like, so I think Fury's going to have to ride that wave, and I don't know how he's going to deal with that personally. I think he'll probably decide to just take a little bit of a break, stay away from the media, turn his social media off. But you can't have it every way. You know, it's a bit like on a smaller level, like me. If I want to give it the big one, if I want to talk shit and I want to pump our shows up, and if one doesn't perform, you've got to take the criticism that comes with it. That's life. But it is strange in our country where we almost jump on an athlete or a sportsman every time they put in one bad performance. But something we always do.
Yeah, definitely. Because like I said, I saw that with AJ, and I said to Tyson in the week when I spoke to him, we've seen AJ's career kind of skyrocket at the start, and then people jumped on him. And then with Tyson, it's been the other way around. So it's a bit one. I think you also said that you heard that he was going to retire. Are you able to say where you heard that and how solid that is?
Just a few, like, I mean, I heard George Groves say it the other day, and I'd already heard from someone else a bit closer to the camp, they wouldn't be surprised if he retired. And I wouldn't either. You know, I think he's just very up and down. I just think with the criticism, I could see him just turning around saying, and I think a fighter knows if they're not the fighter they were. Like, and I don't know whether it's the Wilder fights or the inactivity or just age. You know, that wasn't a big shot from Ngannou. It doesn't matter how you want to dress it up. It wasn't. And he didn't look comfortable in the ring. He looked a little bit fearful of Ngannou, which was strange. So, look, luckily for him, Usyk's not a big puncher. So
I'm going to ask you, about the shot there, because I've made a note here. I spoke to Dominic Ingle yesterday, and he compared the shot to the same shot that Andy.
Yeah.
He said high tempo shots are the worst shots in boxing.
Yeah.
They can completely change the course of a fight. I'm no expert.
Yeah, and also when they're throwing. So what Ngannou did well was he threw with him. And that's what Andy Ruiz did. You know, when Andy Ruiz was about to get stopped in the fight, he just swung his hands and caught AJ trading. So, you know, but I think it's amazing people talk about Ngannou, like, you know, I've had so many MMA guys, he beats everybody, you know, and I keep saying he could literally lose from Southern Area title level to world heavyweight title level. Like that, I still think what he did was incredibly impressive. But, you know, to think that he can start beating heavyweights, elite heavyweights, I just don't buy it.
The interview that you did post-fight with Boxing Social, I spoke to Tyson's manager, Spencer Brown, and obviously told him about some of the comments he made. And he basically said, what's happening with the Wilder fight? You've been talking about that for the last 6 months. What is the latest of that? Because I think you told me about 3-4 months ago that you spoke to Shelley, but he's told you to be quiet about it. What is the latest with all that?
Yeah, I mean, what's happened with the Saudi fight? The Wilder fight is we agreed a deal with Saudi Arabia for the Wilder fight, and they didn't come through with the offer, which is fine, no problem. In the meantime, we decided to have another fight, which is December or January, and kick that fight back to March or April. So we're talking to a number of sites for that fight. Look, the Ngannou entrance makes an interesting mix because that's a fight I would love for Anthony Joshua. I think he wins that fight comfortably. He's now earned the right, Ngannou, whatever you think about the situation, to have another big fight. And AJ against Ngannou is a massive fight. But for us, the Wilder fight is still a priority in the future, as is winning the World Heavyweight Championship. I mean, part of me on Saturday was watching the Ngannou fight thinking, wow, we turned that fight down because AJ just thought it was a bit of embarrassing. But now he's beaten Fury, or in most people's minds, I love the fight for AJ. So if Ngannou's looking for another fight, it doesn't get any bigger than that fight. I've not spoken to AJ about the Ngannou fight. He remains fixed on winning the World Heavyweight Championship. But for me, I would be advising him to take that fight if it materialised.
And just moving on to the last couple of things, we talked about, Tyson refusing to speak to certain media, obviously, namely TalkSport. I think from your side, we've seen them, you've had fallouts with them. AJ's not been happy about stuff they've said about him. Conor Ben's had the same. But to my knowledge, I think Conor and Tyson are the only two people refusing to speak to him at the moment. Our question to you is, I've asked a few people this, can you be that person that can critique boxers and then also look to interview them at the same time? Where's your stance on that?
I mean, look, it's everybody's personal choice who to speak to. I think Conor's done some stuff with TalkSport more recently, but I remember when they came over and Gareth tried to interview him and he was like, I guess it's my job to be more diplomatic than that of a boxer, to speak to media outlets. Like, trust me, no one's given me more stick than TalkSport over the last year, especially Simon Jordan, those guys. I still go on their shows. I still speak to them every week. It's kind of like my job. But I feel like you can't have the rough with the smooth. When AJ got stopped by Ruiz and had concussion, the doctor said, don't do the press conference. And he said, I've got to. It's embarrassing. Like, I can't, got all this media. I can't just, it's my first defeat. I can't just duck it. Then when he got beat to Usyk last time around, he was mentally in a difficult place. He didn't want to do the press conference, but he decided to do it. Came out, he cried in front of everyone. So sometimes you've got to face the music. And I do feel like, unfortunately, we live in a world where sound bites and criticism and all that kind of stuff is actually going to create views. So TalkSport go along the lines of wanting to create controversy around things and fighters and me and fights because they feel like that will do numbers. But when you do numbers, you'll be generally pissing someone off on the way. And at some point, that person might turn around and say, no, not for me. Of which I get it. But the problem is when you do that, it kind of amplifies the problem even more. You know, so if all of a sudden you're not willing to speak to certain media outlets, some people look at it as a bit salty, if you like, you know. And Fury's not exactly not outspoken. I mean, he's slagging everybody off. So if someone wants to slag him off, surely it's fair game. And, you know, we give him all his... I mean, TalkSPORT, to be fair, have highly, highly praised Fury over the years. It's only really around the Ngannou fight and him not fighting Usyk that he's been called out on. So for me, I think you got to do your job, and you got to, you know, unless something personal or libelous or whatever it's going to be is said. But if it's just a general criticism about your fight or you not fighting someone, you know, I think really you got to get on with it and take the rough with the smooth.
Last question, Eddie. Frank Warren obviously announced today that he signed Sol Dakers, and I was just looking through the heavyweights. It appears that Top Rank and Queensberry have got a lot of the heavyweights, like the upcoming guys and the guys that are on the verge of breaking to that top 10. I was looking through your roster. Have you deliberately not kind of invested in the heavyweight division because it's the
we're just deliberately not investing in people that don't have value. I think too many times over the last couple of years we've taken fighters for the sake of it. And then you can't place them. And when you do place them, it's in a fight that's of no relevance. And, you know, I look at a lot of those heavyweights on the list and I just don't see the value. You know, if they're not elite or they're not going to win World Heavyweight Championship, I don't see the point in just putting them in average fights for big money. You know, Sol Dakers was different. Sol Dakers, we had matching rights with Sol. And he received an offer from Frank Warren, and we got sent the offer and we was asked to match it to keep him. And I couldn't believe the offer. And I said to his management team, fucking hell, take it ASAP, quick, sign it. And that's what they did. And so, you know, he's a good fighter. We wish him all the best. But we have to look at the commercial value of a fighter, and we're not just going to overpay for the sake of it. We're not in that game. We're not in a position where we're desperate for talent because we're trying to chase a promotional company. We are that promotional company. We just got to make the right decisions for our business. And we're done with the days of overpaying fighters, especially when they're not willing to be in fights that are going to generate interest. Because as we've seen with Showtime, when you spend too much money for fights that aren't competitive enough or aren't drawing the numbers, the business is over. And we're not going to make that mistake.
Well, I generally appreciate your time. Enjoy the week in Monaco, and we'll catch up probably next week, I think it is.
Yeah, I'll see you there, mate. Take care.
Eddie, thank you.
Protect yourself and your family from unexpected challenges. Consider accident-only income protection. Click the link in the description to find out more.